All right. Now, this next section, guys, I'm going to take several tangents on, just so you know. If you've already watched the videos and gone through this, some of this you may have already heard, but what you haven't seen are all the extra stuff behind the scenes that I'm going to share with you in the due diligence, or what we might call research section. And case studies, I'll bring you in extra case studies. We're going to go back to my inbox and talk about recent deals that are live, that are happening right now. And that's not on the training videos or any of the study material. But here are the next couple minutes before I really dig in to this. I wanted to open up the actual manual for a few minutes. I'm not going to be reading out of the manual to you, but I want to open up the full manual that you can download on the actual website. Okay, and let's go. Let me find that here. And because we're live, guys, you're going to have delays every once in a while. Let's see here. I've got so many things. Let's go back over here. Got too many windows open. Bear with me. Okay. Here we go. This is our latest edition of the manual. Here we go. Thank you for your patience, you guys. And just get everything back in its place. There we go. So tax liens and deeds, real estate investment strategy. So the first version of this that I did was roughly 2011. It took me probably 3 to 4 months to compile this. I'm not an author by any means, nor could I ever write a novel. And I had a copywriter help me format this and put it in a training type manual and compile all my notes and research from the previous years. So I think I had shown you already the particular chapter titles here, but I just wanted to quickly go through this, you guys, if anything else, just to make you aware of all the information that's in here for you. Okay. At the beginning of each chapter, I give you some key terms. It's just like any new business, or if you're going to learn a different language, you need to familiarize yourself with these key terms. Now, several of the main terms we have gone over here. You're learning a new language. So at the beginning of each chapter, I put in what the terms are, and so that as you read the chapter, you'll be more familiar with the industry terms. Okay. I try to use examples as far as bailed up banks snap up tax liens. Now, this was dated in 2011, but it's still true. What you don't know about the tax lien industry, you guys, is that large banks and large insurance companies and conglomerates, if you will, they have massive portfolios of tax liens. And in some cases, they have a mortgage on the house, and they've also purchased the tax lien certificate, the debt, the back taxes on that same house. Now you'd say, why would they do that? They can foreclose on their mortgage, okay? But in certain states, if you foreclose on the tax lien certificate first, or even if they've started the foreclosure, you can wipe out the mortgage. Now you need attorneys to do this stuff, but it can extinguish the mortgage. And in states where that's the law, banks are paying attention to their investments. And so they'll go to the tax lien auction and they'll bid on stuff as well. Okay. At the peak of their portfolio, Bank of America had a particular fund that owned over $300 million nationwide of tax lien certificates. Now, they sold that fund eventually when the market started to heal itself and the foreclosures went down. All right. But at the peak of the foreclosure crisis, they also invested very heavily in tax lien certificates, just so you know. I thought it was kind of interesting. And in the book, I give lots of case study, lots of articles, priority of liens in a foreclosure, junior liens, superior liens, what types of liens those might be, and we'll get in great depth into what we call lien theory. So lien theory, you guys, will be very, very critical no matter what type of real estate investing that you're doing. You'll have to trust me on this one because it's kind of a boring topic. But in lien theory, whether or not you're a real estate flipper, if you're buying real estate like actual houses from a normal real estate auction, you better know your lien theory and what could attach to that property and you might inherit. And especially in the tax lien business, you need to understand what we call the priority of liens. And I'll make you not necessarily experts, but you will really understand it by the time we get done with our lien theory section. Tax foreclosure process, we've kind of already gone over that. How process works in certificate states. Okay. And we'll go live on some county sites as well and give you they give instructions on how to buy their stuff. They want you to buy their stuff, and they'll give you exact specific procedure on how to do that. Okay. How the county offices work, how they're kind of laid out, who you need to talk to, what the different departments are. I think no matter, again, what type of real estate investor you are, it's good to know your way around the county office. Okay. Some potential questions we'll go over later for the taxing authority to kind of learn what's going on. Auction and purchase information. Okay. All right. Finding the money, tax liens versus tax deeds, we'll talk about. I'm not going to start reading this stuff. I just want to quickly skim through this so you guys know what this resource is. Okay. Tax deed numbers crunch. Okay. Let's see if I've got a tax lien one here. Now, before the break, I'm just going to go through this numbers crunch because, look, guys, up until now, honestly, we've been talking about a lot of theory, a lot of procedure, a lot of definitions. And at a certain point, to quote a popular movie, you're going to say to me, show me the money. How does this thing actually work? Sean, give me the nuts and bolts of how a deal works from beginning to end and some examples of the numbers and what I might be able to expect from a reasonable return without any of those major risk factors happening to me. Just a normal everyday kind of tax lien, right? That doesn't go south on me. So let's go through this numbers crunch before the break, get into some meat and potatoes. You purchase the lien for this amount. Very rarely are you going to see a lien that's an even number. So if you're wondering why I've used a number that looks like this, is because there's always accruing interest and penalties that make it so it's never $1,000 lien. Okay, and you'll occasionally see me using examples just for me, where I'll round off the numbers, but just to make the math a little easier. You purchase the original lien, and you have the opportunity, okay, during the redemption period to purchase the next year if you want. Sometimes the county will give you first dibs to buy what they call the subtax or subsequent tax year. So let's say you bought the 2014 year, and the county in some states will send you out a notification that says, before the auction, because you own this year, you're going to have the opportunity to buy the tax lien before it goes to public auction. Okay? That's in a handful of states. Ohio is one of those states, for example. So we get our notices every year from Ohio with a list of liens that say, hey, because you owned the previous year, you have the opportunity to buy this tax lien before it goes to public auction. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Depends on our strategy with the property. Okay, so in this example, what I'm saying is you're going to buy the first year and you're going to buy a couple more years so that you own 3 total. Now, when given the opportunity, guys, it's nice to own all the years that are outstanding. As I'll explain when we go through the Florida case study, it doesn't matter in some states if you own all the years. So you don't have to feel that financial pressure, okay? The title search, this is done by the county, okay? Sometimes you might pay for it privately, but most of the time in states, when you've started it, you have to pay that as a fee. It becomes part of the debt that's due and payable to you when you get redeemed. That's usually $85, and I've seen it be as much as about $150 in some counties. Noticing of parties in interest, and we talked about that. That's the constructive notice. So you have to notice the homeowners. If there's a mortgage lender, okay, that has an interest in this property, meaning a lien on the property with the mortgage loan, they have to get notice, okay? So the attorney dealing with the case has to send out notices to all those people. They have to post it in the newspaper. They have to send out certified mail and so forth. Okay. And guess what? Guess who pays off some of our liens? We have been paid directly from banks. Okay. When they know the homeowner doesn't have the ability to make the payment because they're late on the bank as well, we get a check directly from the bank, or they pay off at the county. One notable case, guys, came from a car wash. Now, we don't typically, the bulk of our tax liens have been on two main products in real estate, which have been residential homes and building lots. I love building lots. And in one case, in a portfolio that we bought, there was a car wash. Okay, and we deemed the car wash to be worth about $250,000, even though it wasn't needed some updating, that's for sure. And the bank had a loan on this thing of, I think, well over $300,000. So they probably knew they were upside down in the thing as well. And so they wanted to start negotiating with us. And they thought they were going to come in and hardball us. And there was roughly about $60,000 worth of liens that were owing us with all the interest, penalties, and attorney's fees. And it was a large bank. If I said the name, you'd recognize it. And they thought they were going to come in and hardball us. And so they started sending a bunch of attorney letters and so forth. And eventually I just kind of said, look, guys, every time you send me an attorney letter, I've got to pay my attorney to answer you. And I'm just adding that onto the debt. So keep it going. I don't care. You're going to end up paying me anyway. Meaning I'm going to foreclose on this property. I'm doing it right now. And there's no way you can stop me. Okay. You can keep trying to string this process out, delay us, stall us. But at the end of the day, a judge is going to put his gavel down and award us this property. And guess what? You go away. So here's my offer to you. You're going to pay us 100% of everything that's owed, or I'm going to completely stop communication with you and we're done. And about 3 weeks later, we got a check. Okay. Now, I'm not saying it was easy. And at the end of the day, I did come down slightly. I did come down in that debt because we had accrued a lot of interest over time. And I felt like, based on what I could do with that money for our company, and turn it over and make money. So there's also opportunity cost I had to figure into this. I did end up negotiating slightly with them, but I had to lay down the law. So again, noticing of interested parties, that it could include banks, legal expenses, okay, that's an average, okay, could go up from that, could go down. And then, average rehab. Now, again, this is assuming the property's in pretty decent shape, and this is just a quickie cleanup rehab. I gave you an example of a Florida property we just got a hold of by the beach in Palm Beach. I'll bet you we'll be into that thing at the low end 25, high end 40 by the time all's said and done. Could be more after we pay off code violations and such. I don't know. We're just investigating that. So here's your cost all in so far, about 11 grand. Okay. Average cost for fix up, I give some disclaimers about that. This is cosmetics only. Sell the property at 70% of market value, possibly even with a quick claim deed to another investor on a quickie wholesale deal. Who knows? Less our expenses and cleanup, our net profit is this, the return on investment. Now, Guys, I'm going to tell you there's been deals. I told you about a deal that we lost $500 in. There's been other deals where I've only made $500, but I just wanted to get out of the property, meaning I got reimbursed for the amount of the tax liens on a property, and we sold it to another investor, a local guy, contractor in town. I said, hey, and it's on a very nominal valued property where I didn't, we can't get our self strung out doing 15 rehabs at one time. There's been other properties where we've just made $5,000. There's been other properties that have been very lucrative turnarounds and done very, very well at. Okay. This is just one example. I always, always, always have to give you guys the legal disclaimer in all of this presentation. You'll hear it a handful of times that results may vary. Okay. All of these samples that I'm showing you are theoretical here. And then I will actually show you real-time deals. Like when we go to my inbox, those are real-time, fully documented deals and so forth, so that you have some trust and faith in what I'm showing you. Okay, so that's that one example. All right, just a quickie numbers crunch so you can start to get a flavor for how the deals progress. When we come back, I'm going to do a quick tax deed numbers crunch, and we'll just skim through the rest of the manual. And then we're going to get into some really deep research methods so that you guys can learn how to pick target markets. And these skills that I'm going to go into in this next section over here, you guys, of due diligence, these skills will help you in every element of real estate investing. How to run your own comparable sales, for example. So I'm really excited about that section. Now, whether we'll get it all in today, I don't know, but we'll give it a good shot. All right, guys. So it's roughly about 10 a.m. my time, probably about noon your time. So go grab a quick bite. Let's reconvene in about 15 minutes. And I hope this has been okay. And then again, questions. Now, at the very end of our presentation, guys, and this particular section, I've got frequently asked questions section that we've compiled over the years. So many of the things that have been the most common questions we'll go over in that FAQ summary as well. I'm super pumped up about the next few sections that we're going to go over. Let's finish up with our kind of tax deed numbers crunch. And again, let's talk about the difference between tax lien investing and tax deed investing. When you're buying a tax lien certificate, remember, you're basically buying a piece of paper that gives you the rights to collect the interest, to get a redemption on a tax lien or debt. When you go to a tax deed auction, you're actually buying the deed to the property. And remember, the different states do it different ways. All right, so let's go over just a quick sample numbers crunch if you're going to a tax deed auction. And I would say this, these numbers will be somewhat familiar if you're going to a standard real estate auction that a bank puts on or the county puts on for a mortgage foreclosure. So you win the bid at $70,000. What you estimate is the market value of the property after repairs or what we call after rehab value is say $100,000, which I will be honest with you, if you don't know this number, and I'll give you some training on that, before you bid, don't bid. If you don't have a very clear idea of what this property will sell for in after rehab value condition, you're probably going to lose money eventually in this business. You're completely relying on luck if you don't have a good understanding of what that property's worth at a fixed up and retail value. Okay. And luckily, I've never done that. I've never lost money in that fashion, but I have seen people do very poorly in this business when they guessed at or believed somebody else on what they thought the value was, bought it, fixed it up, and they ended up with a long-term rental property, okay, instead of a quick flip. Tax deed purchase of $70,000 or 70% of after rehab value. There's no redemption period like in Texas, like they have a redeemable deed state, okay, and you're getting the property outright. Average cost to fix up. Okay, this could vary, obviously. Okay, let's go here. So average cost to fix up, $3,000. I'm pulling that number from several cosmetic rehabs that we've done. Less, say, a realtor commission to sell it in the market. We're going to talk about real estate agents and exit when we do our exit strategy section. Selling the property at 100% market value, or what you could get for a fair market value out on the market. And your net profit is $21,000. Okay. Now, if you look at the comparison between this return versus a tax lien investment return, it's drastic. But remember, you guys, the percentage chance of you getting a property back on foreclosure and a tax liens is much, much less, astronomically less than just going and buying a property at auction outright. So this doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it can potentially create a very good situation for you, obviously. Okay. Let's see, the rule of thumbs is to buy your tax deed at 70% of market value, which is a fairly standard price. Okay. That's the number for an average investor. If you could buy the house for less, you should give it a try. Meaning, I don't necessarily use a lot of rules of thumb. And when I see people putting out these numbers, of, hey, you shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that, as far as percentages of how you buy your properties, I think, okay, well, that's wonderful, but why not just buy it for as cheap as you can? Here's my goal, you guys. Now, this is going to sound a little silly, but my goal is to buy every property for $1. So whenever I'm negotiating on real estate to purchase a new property, I want to get it for as cheap as possible. Now, obviously, due to market constrictions and basic laws of supply and demand and human nature, I don't buy properties for $1. But I don't necessarily set limits on myself. The worst that somebody can tell me is no. So in an auction style format, like in this particular case study, I can bid $1, but what are the chances that I'm going to get that? 0. Somebody's going to bid $2 or whatever it is. And the natural laws of economics of supply and demand are going to come into effect. And based on my research, if the property goes higher than my highest threshold, then I'm going to get out of the bid. And I'm not losing an opportunity, in my opinion, because the risk is too high if I spend too much money on that property. A lot of people, one of the number one mistakes that I see people make, whether it's doing an auction style tax deed auction like this or just buying a house in general for investment, is the number one mistake I see people make in real estate is they just flat out pay too much for the property because they don't know how to determine property value for themselves. They believe a realtor, an appraiser, the county assessed value, another investor trying to get them into a deal, and they lose money. So one of the number one skill set that you have to have as a real estate investor is understanding how to do comparable sales and property valuations for yourself. And I'm going to go over a huge section on that to try to give you a lot of great tools so that you can be on your journey to learn how to do that. Okay. My current reading material, I've got it out here on the desk. You're gonna love this. As far as, you can definitely call me names and a nerd, but this is my it's by Dr. Stephen Fanning. I'll just hold that right up to the camera. Okay, it's a big book. I read this stuff. Okay, and this goes into in-depth analysis on market selection and market trends, because we're now delving into some commercial stuff and stuff that I need to be studying up on. And your journey will begin in learning market value through your training here, and it needs to be something that you're always researching and learning more on, is how to determine market value and trends. Okay, so moving on. And we'll just keep skimming the book. I really, really want to get through this so you understand what kind of resource you have. Okay. Oh, and at the end of the chapters, you guys, I actually give you some action items, okay, to do. Some positive mental attitude stuff here so you can keep your brain in the right direction too, positive thinking. Due diligence and research, cloud on title, what's a CMA or comparative market analysis, for example. Okay. Going over your own objectives. Okay. How the tax lien auctions work. I'm going to stop here for just a second. This is an auction, year and a half ago, I want to say. There was 28,000 certificates advertised. I believe this was this is an Arizona auction, if I remember right. And inactive certificates versus active, meaning inactive. I don't purchase those. In some states, they have different classifications. They could be on homesteaded properties potentially, or stuff that's in a lawsuit. Here's the amount of sales that took place. Okay, the total volume for the county. And they usually have different bid batches. So you can see, no, this is definitely a Florida auction, sorry. And you can see on these different batches how much was sold per batch. And usually auctions can take a day to 3 days to get through this many batches, or they have a week-long bidding period. All depends on the county. Okay. Here's a summary of, now this is old, but this is an auction we participated in. Okay. Undesirable areas, we'll get into that more in our due diligence. Okay. Hidden time bombs we'll go over, and more specifically here in a minute. Choosing a target market, we're going to get into. Economic conversion, I'm going to spend a fair amount of time on that. Okay. All right. So I think, guys, without just beating this dead, I mean, I'm not going to spend a lot more time on the manual here. Okay. Finding the best deals. Here's where I'm going to stop. Here's where I'm going to stop just for a minute. Okay. A lot of what we've talked to in your training that you've purchased from the company, it talks about how to get started, how to set up a basic business if you haven't done one before, how to start an LLC, for example, get yourself some good asset protection, some of the basic things that you need to do to start the real estate business, like building a power team of a contractor, realtors, property management, all that stuff locally, right? What I don't hear a lot in the industry, as far in the training side of things, that I felt was really, real important, is how not to get started in this business. What not to do when you first get started, whether it's tax lien investing, real estate investing, whatever it might be in general. And so I thought I would just add a few things here. And the reason that I put this together is because on friends or clients, remember, I had a mortgage business, a brokerage for 12 years. 12 years. And I saw people purchasing investment properties that would come to me and my partner and seek financing from banks on bad deals, horrible deals. But because I wasn't their real estate agent or their attorney, I didn't have the legal flexibility to give them that type of advice. I wasn't licensed to give them legal and or specific real estate advice about their transaction. Otherwise, I could have lost my license as a mortgage lender, a loan officer or a broker. So we saw a lot of people do some dumb things during especially the high times of the ramp up from like 2002 to 2007-ish, okay? So let's go over a few of these things that I've actually witnessed on when people lost a lot of money in real estate. And all this applies to tax lien investing as well, because it is real estate based. All of it's real estate. Number one, don't ask a buddy or family member for advice unless they're a real estate expert. Okay? Just because our brother-in-law owns a house and he says something like, I can't believe you joined that program, you just got ripped off. Look, uh, or you're crazy to buy that property in Kentucky or that tax lien certificate. I only listen to advice unless they're already a successful person at what they do. So, in what they're giving me advice on. Now, that's not to put down anybody. Why do they give us advice? Why do our friends and family give us advice? Is because they love us and they're scared for us and they don't want to lose their inheritance or whatever it might be. All right, so I get it. But I would say that be very careful. Like I say in the book here, don't ask an accountant to perform a brain surgery. That doesn't mean you're a bad accountant. All right, so I'll get off that. Don't ask your realtor for advice. Now, this may seem strange. Understand, I have held both mortgage and real estate licensings over my career for various purposes. And realtors are a great source of raw data, just like an appraiser is, just like looking at county information on a property. And but at the end of the day, okay, if there's anybody that's a realtor on this call, please don't be offended, because at the end of the day, we all have to feed our families. And I've worked with good realtors. I've worked with realtors that only have their own self-interest in mind. And I'm not talking about being cautious or not listening to good advice from a realtor that serves his client more than they serve themselves. But realtors, whether or not they're listing a property or selling a property, or helping you buy property, understand here's the philosophy. When a real estate agent presents you their presentation on listing a property for you, they're going to tell you that they're going to maximize the value of that property. That is their mandate by their licensing, okay? But human nature and feeding your own family can take over, and I never get angry at anybody over this. Doesn't mean I'll keep employing them. But when I have listing agents, and we've got over 190 listings going right now in the open active market, and I'll show you those as well. But many times I get advice that would draw the price down of that property. And that for various reasons, whether the agent says, well, this house just won't sell over the winter, so you're going to have to lower the price. That may be good advice. It may not be good advice. But at the end of the day, when an offer comes in, I don't need the agent's advice to tell me if I should accept the offer or not. Because here's some common lines that you may hear, which is, Sean, you're crazy if you don't take this listing. You're not going to get a better offer. And I'm like, well, how can you read the future? How do you know that? Okay. And I'm like, you're supposed to be fighting for me. So you go tell that to the buyer. Instead of telling me that, tell the buyer what a great opportunity they have, and they need to come up to what I want. Okay. When you're buying a house through a real estate agent, as an investor, you want to buy it at a discount, don't you? Okay. So when you're making an offer that's below the listing price, the realtor knows that their chances of getting paid and getting a closed deal are going down. The lower that you offer on that price, and the realtor has to submit that offer, they know that it's a lower percentage chance that they're going to get paid. There have been times when I've worked with different agents, and all good people, that they refuse to submit my offer. And they'll say, that's embarrassing. I will not submit that quote unquote lowball offer. It's offensive. And I'm like, offensive to who? Well, the seller's going to be offended. The other real estate agent's going to be offended. And I'm like, well, you don't work for them. Okay. Now I'm really going to get on my soapbox, guys, and bring it all around to a point here. But at the end of the day, if they don't do exactly what I tell them as my employee, then they no longer can work for me or represent me. Now, to me, a lowball offer is not offensive at all because I'm attempting to buy at a discount to feed my family. Okay. So don't ask a realtor for what we might call final investment advice. You ask a realtor under their services that they provide to provide you raw data, like a CMA that's going to show you comps, or market information that they may know, or market insights that they may have, and you gather that, all that together, and you make your own decision about what you do with your own money. Now, I'll just read here. While this may seem to be a harsh judgment of real estate agents in general, please understand that a solid professional real estate agent with your goals in mind is worth their weight in gold. Let me show you one. Okay, just so you don't think I hate real estate agents, because some of my very best friends are real estate agents. So we have a large operation of rental properties out in Kansas City. My representative is Ellen Brewood. She is one of the top real estate agents in the state. Okay, and you can see here, I have several correspondence with her every single day. Okay, as we get properties that we have foreclosed on, or that we are buying and then reselling or fixing up for rentals, and this is again a little bit different operation than just the tax liens, but you know, she is absolutely phenomenal. So you can see some of her. She's asking for statuses on some of these properties that we have listed. We've got a BPO of a property that we just got here. And this all goes to due diligence, that we're coming into that section right now. But she provided a massive amount of information and comparable sales for me on what's called a BPO, a broker price opinion report, BPO. Another variation of this is called a CMA that realtors can provide, and it's a comparative market analysis, and they're very similar, okay, where she's giving me comparable sales and what they sold for in the market, and then she's giving me some of her estimates of what she thinks it will sell for in as-is condition and a range. And this property is already in really good shape, so there's not a big variance as far as as-is or repaired value. And my philosophy is that I'm still going to challenge this, and so I'll list it just slightly above this and then gauge the market response. If I get 0 calls the first week, then Ellen tells me, Sean, I was right, you were wrong. And she's right, okay? Meaning the market response is, if I try to list this at 52.9 and I get 0 calls that first week or 2 or 3, the market is sending me a message that it's not worth that much. Okay, and so we do price reductions, and we find the market value through systematic price reductions on a weekly basis based on what the market's telling us through call-ins, through requests for showings, and for offers that come in. That's how you find out the true value of any property when you go to sell it. And again, we're going to go over a lot of this more extensively in our exit strategy and due diligence section. Okay. And so with this, having a good realtor on your side, you're going to get pictures of all the sales comparables and actively listed properties, so you can see what your competition is going to be out in the market. Okay. And here's our subject property. This is the little property that we got a hold of through a foreclosure process. Okay. And the street shots. Hopefully I'm not going too fast so you guys can see all this. Okay. And you can see this is all fairly recent. Now, we're trying to make arrangements with the owner to get inside and make sure they feel comfortable. And they're actually renters in there right now. So they have rights that we have to respect. Here's another BPO she just did for me. So this is when a good realtor is worth their weight in gold. And I trust her, because we've now been through about 80 transactions together. Okay. All good stuff. And this particular property, this little home here, a little rental property in a nice neighborhood. All right. So just to give you an idea of some of the current transactions that we're working on, and so forth and so on. All right, so let's go back here. How not to get started. Okay, don't get started with easy to spot, trashed out properties. Now, if you're buying tax lien certificates, you're going to be looking at those properties that you're going to buy the tax lien certificates. Now, if it's in a different state, obviously looking is the process we're going to talk about in our due diligence training coming up next. But that might be Google Street View or getting somebody to do some drive-bys for you. locally in the market, like a realtor, property manager. But a lot of people will start with the properties that are easy to see that there could be an investment type property. And these types of properties can become money pits that require you to take on huge time and money commitments in major structural repairs. And it's not always like it is on the television shows, you guys, okay? To take on big, massive projects like a total gut job, I don't believe that we should start out that way in this business. I didn't. Most of my first flips that I did were just cosmetic repairs. And, or a mortgage client that wanted to get out was kind of how we started in the business. But, I wouldn't look for the total trash out fixer upper at the deed sale or what you're buying as far as tax lien certificates on houses that are already massive gut job projects. I would look for the ones where it's a nice family home where somebody's probably living in there. Okay. All right. Let's move on here. I don't know what that text is goofed up. And I think a lot of this we're going to talk about. Oh yeah, and I talk about some specific sites that we'll get into. Lots of resources here we're going to go over. Okay. I think, guys, I think you're starting to get a really, really, really good feel, I hope, of the manual. I've got a whole definition section at the very end with about every real estate term that you can imagine. I know it's going to sound crazy, but at least once in your life, read through this. There's lots of new language to learn in this business. Okay, let's go back to our main screen here.